Welcome to Inside Economics. I'm Mark Zandy, the chief economist of Moody's Analytics, and welcome back, Marissa Di Natale.
I'm back.
You're back.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I'm still on vacation, I should say, but I am doing this podcast today.
Well, it's been a while. I mean, it's
I
been
know it's been a month. It was the last jobs report, I think, that I was on.
really,
Yeah.
wow. Picked a good time
Yeah.
to come back, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
You brought a lot of luck to the jobs report this month.
Yeah. Well, welcome back. And of course,
Thanks.
Chris, welcome. Chris
Hi,
and
Mark.
Marissa. And we have Dante, of course. Dante, Dr. D'Antonio. It's Jobs Friday. This is Friday, August 1st. Hey, Dante.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Good. Are you happy to have Marissa back? I certainly am.
I'd say like she was never gone. She was here the last time I was here, so I haven't missed her.
Chris is so damn boring,
Ah,
Wow.
Ouch.
that's tough. That's rough.
I noticed you didn't ask me to fill in for Marissa while she was out, though. You didn't ask me to come on in her place, so.
So what are you doing here then?
There's no replacement.
Yeah,
apparently. Oh, is it you're crashing the party? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
I'm glad thank God you're here. That was a definite oversight.
You are so mellow, Dante. I can't believe it.
I'm not going to tell you the reason why I'm mellow.
Where are you?
I'm at the beach. Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
A guys weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
A guys' weekend.
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh.
Guys' weekend.
Wow.
They golf and I do a podcast. So.
Oh,
okay.
Seems like a fair trade.
Yeah.
You're the dork of the group.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Can I ask where do you go when you say I'm going to the beach?
Normally, we go to Ocean City, New Jersey as a family.
Yeah.
This trip is in Ocean City, Maryland.
Oh, okay. Got it. I've
Ah.
never been to Ocean City, Maryland.
The party town. Okay.
Was that what that is? A party town? I think they're all party towns, actually.
Chris would know, right?
Of course he would. Of course he would. No, it's way too low brow.
Not the boring Chris. Right?
Not the boring. No, it's way too low brow for Chris, man. Ocean City, Maryland.
It's not the Amalfi Coast.
Not the Amalfi Coast, exactly.
That is true.
Yeah. Anyway, well, this is a big day, man. It seems like everything changed with this jobs report. Huge revisions. But anyway, you want to dive right in, Dante? You want to give us a rundown of the numbers?
I can do that. Headline job growth slowed as we expected. 73,000 jobs added in July. As you alluded to, the bigger story was the revisions to prior months. Combined 258,000 down in May and June.
Wow.
So you went from a 3-month average job gain of 150,000 last month, and it's now just 35,000 average over the last 3 months. That's a pretty significant shift in the narrative around the labor market. The industry mix is
Hey, can I stop you right there, as I want to do?
Yeah.
The revisions. Let's just focus on. So this is the jobs report for the month of July.
That's correct.
And coming in to this report, it felt like the job market was hanging together reasonably well. 150,000 jobs on average per month in the previous 3 months. Now that's all gone, all completely revised away. And these revisions, I think you told me before we started the podcast that's the biggest revisions in the history of the BLS payroll employment survey.
Going back to 1979, yeah, except for 1 month in the pandemic, but obviously we're dealing with changes that were very, very large, so it's not surprising that you had big revisions then.
Right. Okay. And so what's going on? What do you think? I know we don't know for sure, but why? What the heck is going on here? Why such large revisions?
I think it's a mix of things. I mean, you've got obviously survey response issues, low response rates. You've got a big part of the revision was government. And so you have, sort of perpetual response problems with the federal government. And then you have obviously all the DOGE related cuts that have been sort of on again, off again. So I think you're seeing some of that now show up when they didn't have, sort of concrete information a few months ago. Seasonal adjustment issues. We talked last month about there was a huge reported gain in state and local governments that now got wiped away. It was largely a seasonal adjustment issue that I think now was since resolved. So I think it's a mix of factors that are playing into it.
Marissa, you were mentioning before the podcast, you thought maybe the government cuts to statistical agencies, the fact that they've been reducing their own payrolls, maybe playing a role here.
Yeah, I think just given the magnitude of these revisions and given what we know is going on with cuts to funding for stats agencies, given all the layoffs in federal government, and given that federal government usually has very large revisions. It seems like there's a lot of smoke there, right? So I think it has to be playing into what we're seeing
Yeah.
here with the stats, which
Right.
doesn't give me a ton of confidence in the statistics themselves, right? Like, what are we going to see when we get the benchmark revision and all of that? I think we're now in a situation where we should expect very large revisions to all the data.
So this 73,000 jobs we got in the month of July, that's suspect as well. I mean, if we
I think so. I think
it
that,
could actually be
right?
negative, given
That's
the
right. I think given the magnitude of the revisions we see in the previous 2 months, yeah. I mean, I don't have much confidence in that particular number.
and you mentioned the benchmark revision. These revisions we got today are the kind of the monthly revisions. The BLS goes back a couple months every month and revises the data to be more consistent with all the survey responses that they're getting. But once a year, they go back and they so-called benchmark the estimates from the survey that we're looking at now to actual counts of jobs from the unemployment insurance records. And we have a sense of that too. That feels like those numbers, the basis for those benchmark revisions, the QCEW, the quarterly census of employment and wages, that's also been very weak. So we could even see even more downward revision. It feels like we're going to see even more downward revision when we get those benchmarks at the start of next year.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
think we talked about that a month
Last
ago.
time, month
Yeah,
ago. Okay. Yeah. Talk about
right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think now I'm forgetting exactly what the number was, but I mean, it was in the 900,000
Yeah. It was above where
range,
we've been
right?
down. Yeah.
And BLS, I think today in the release of the jobs report said that the preliminary benchmark will be released with the in September. So with
Okay.
the August, yeah, so we'll get a preview of it
So next month
next month.
we're going to get a preview of the benchmark of it.
Yes, right,
Okay.
Yeah.
right.
Oh, wow. So there's a reasonable probability. I'm going to say this as a statement, but you respond any way you want. There's a reasonable probability that we're actually already seeing job loss, net job loss, right? Would
Hmm.
anyone, Dante, do you think that's a possibility?
We can't rule it out. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that maybe it's a 50-50 probability at this point.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So 35K on average monthly over the monthly job growth over the past 3 months. Okay. All right. Go forward,
Well, yeah, and
Dante.
the 35K average, but you think about healthcare by itself is averaging more than 60,000 over the
Ah,
last 3 months, right? So
oh,
everything
geez.
else is down, right? Just in July, the headline gain was 73. Healthcare added 73.3 thousand jobs, right? So everything else out of healthcare was net zero. There were a couple industries that were up a little bit, some that were down a little bit, but they net out to nothing, right? Growth is basically coming from healthcare and nothing else at this point.
So what you're saying is not only is the job growth slowing and slowing very sharply, it's becoming very concentrated. It's like healthcare. That's pretty much
Right.
it.
And I mean, it's been, but up until recently, we've had, the public sector had been contributing at times, leisure and hospitality had been contributing at times, but now those
Yeah.
increasingly have vanished, and it's just healthcare on a regular basis. So
Right. Right. And I noticed if you look at the industry detail, we're still getting some job growth in construction, which I suspect that's not going to last very long because it feels like single family housing construction is going to fall off here pretty significantly given all the inventory of unsold homes. But manufacturing is actually consistently losing jobs now.
Yeah.
yeah, and there were some downward revisions there. Yeah, the manufacturing's down, I think almost 40,000 now over the last 3 months. So yeah, you've got pretty
Right.
consistent losses now in manufacturing.
Right. And anything else? You said government's now laying off federal government, obviously, because of the Doge cut related cuts. And there's more of that to come, I think, right?
Yeah, almost certainly. Those still all haven't made their way through the system, and then you still have a lot of the deferred resignations that won't hit until later this year, early fall, probably.
Right. Okay. And state and local government is kind of flattish.
Yeah,
Employment.
so I think it was basically flat this month. If you go back last month, there was that like 70,000 gain in state and local government, and that got
Right.
reduced down to like 10. Basically got wiped out. That wasn't a real gain; it was just seasonal adjustment issues.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that payroll? This is the payroll survey, the survey of businesses.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real news on hourly earning. It feels inconsequential compared to the numbers, the jobs numbers themselves. I mean, earnings haven't really moved. Year over year growth is still around 4%, which, doesn't feel like it matters all that much given everything else we've learned.
Okay. So I ask you every month, what is the underlying rate of monthly job growth?
Yeah.
And of course, that's hard to do when these revisions are occurring. I mean, they're so large, but okay, here we are. What is underlying monthly job growth?
75. I think I'm just looking at healthcare and saying healthcare is growing at about,
55.
65 to 75, and maybe that's just what we get moving forward.
So 75K.
Yeah.
That is the abstracting from the vagaries of the data, the survey issues, the seasonal adjustment issues, kind of the underlying rate of job growth is 75K.
I think that's
Okay.
my guess right now.
Marissa, what do you think? Is that your sense of things too?
I think it's lower.
Lower.
Yeah. I don't know, because
Yeah.
again, I don't have a ton of confidence in the numbers right now, but I feel like we're barely positive here right now.
Yeah.
If
Barely
if
positive.
we're even if we're positive.
If we're positive. Chris,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Marissa. I think we're
Lower.
quite low. Maybe
Yeah.
still treading water here.
Right.
But and I don't think they're mass layoffs, right? We have unemployment insurance claims are still fairly buoyant, but
That's the only good news in the labor market is no layoffs.
no layoffs. So,
Initial claims are low.
right.
But it's fascinating, even with no layoffs, we're
Yeah.
getting no job growth, right?
Yep.
That's pretty amazing, actually. So what if there's any little, even if we get a little bit of a pickup in layoffs, we're definitely in negative territory. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. All right. And I think I just put it out there. My sense is that when the payroll employment numbers go negative, when you start seeing declines in payroll employment, these are the numbers we're talking about right now. That is recession. I mean, every time you go, that is payroll employment is the single best, most accurate coincident indicator of economic activity. That's the when the National Bureau of Economic Research, the folks, the academics sit down and data recession data, they look at a plethora of data, but that's the single most important variable. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dante, maybe I think the month that payroll employment goes negative in a consistent way is the month that recessions are it's the start of recessions. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, and I'm also trying to remember. I'll have to dig up the piece. I think I had looked at one point. I don't think it's ever happened that you had 2 consecutive months of declines in payrolls without a recession following. Right? It only
Yeah,
takes two
right.
months. So you get the odd month every once in a while that you get a
Yeah.
decline, but if you
Right.
get two declines in a row, that's a
You're
pretty
done.
pretty strong signal that we're already in it.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, let's go to the household survey, the survey of households. And what did it say?
Yeah, not much in the way of a silver lining there. I mean, other than the unemployment rate is still low, but it ticked up. It reversed the small decline from last month, so it's at 4.2% again. Labor force contracted again. It was a smaller decline than we've had in recent months, but still fell. The participation rate fell. It's down to 62.2%. That's the lowest it's been since I think late 2022, and it's down I think 0.4% since just like 3 months ago. So we've seen the labor force is actually smaller today than it was at the beginning of the year in January. So the trend there is not a positive one. Household survey employment actually declined by 260,000. So yeah, not a whole lot of good news on that front either.
Yeah. So household employment fell. So that's the other measure of employment. We put less weight on that just because the household survey is small. It's what
Yeah.
60,000 households. So it's historically been less reliable, but that's down. In labor force, I was looking. I think you mentioned this. It hasn't changed at all since the beginning of the year, right? It's flat as a pancake,
Yep.
right? And that probably goes to one, the weakening demand for labor, less hiring, but also probably more importantly, the immigration policies, right? Because you can see labor force. I didn't look at labor force for foreign born. Was it weak again in the month of July? Do you know?
I did not check it
Didn't look.
beforehand.
Okay, maybe we
Yeah,
can take a look.
it fell.
It fell. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've gone from a year ago, we were seeing boom-like growth in labor force for foreign-born immigrants, but now it's, I think, after you control for population, you make an adjustment for population controls. I won't go into any detail what that means, but you got to make an adjustment. I think labor force for the foreign-born immigrants are actually declining, which would be consistent with, all the things that are going on, with regard to immigration policy.
It fell by
Okay.
like 500,000.
Yeah.
Say that again.
It fell by about 500,000 just
That's a
over the
lot.
month. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. So, and the unemployment rate for two, uh, is read much into that, or I mean, it's been kind of hovering around four. I guess it's this getting hard to interpret what the unemployment rate really means, right?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, I think, a little bit last month, but it feels like we're getting closer to that situation where job growth is basically flat and the unemployment rate still isn't increasing, right? The unemployment rate could stay pretty low here because there's basically no labor force growth, even as you get, basically no job growth. So it's going to be hard to reconcile. Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to come back and I'm going to ask you about your probability of recession, later, maybe at the end of the conversation, but, these kind of numbers got to change your views on that a little bit, right? Just to presage.
I think it has to make you more pessimistic. Yeah.
Has to make you more pessimistic. Okay. Marissa, anything else you want to add on the job numbers, writ large?
No, I'm just concerned about the quality of the data that we're getting and the revisions that we're seeing. I think it's difficult to really get a good handle on what exactly is happening here in the labor market.
Chris, any broad perspective on this?
I think tough to find something really positive in this report, right?
Yeah. Is there any positives in the report? Anything at all?
There was a little tick up in the average work week.
Oh, was there? Okay. But that's after a decline last month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and hours are pretty low. Hours worked are pretty low.
That's right. And it's difficult to estimate as well.
So even that, not so much.
No.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for something.
Looking for something. All right. Yeah, I see nothing at all redeeming in the report. I mean, it's disconcerting. Very, very disconcerting.
Yeah.
Particularly on top of the fact that inflation is clearly accelerating, right? Because we got a lot of data this week. We got the GDP number. We got the consumer expenditure deflator inflation number, which I found that came out yesterday, Thursday, July 31st, and that was equally disconcerting, right? Because it showed a pretty sizable increase in core, excluding food and energy, PCE. That was up 0.3, and year over year it's up 2.8, and it's clearly the direction of travel here is clear. Inflation is accelerating, right? Did you, Chris, how do you interpret that data?
No, same. Concerning, right?
Right. Right.
There are those out there who are saying it's a one-time shift. Don't worry about it, but I don't know.
This is definitely not the case. Definitely
not the case.
Yeah. Definitely not the case.
And this is without
especially. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm going to say without even all the tariff effects fully baked in yet, right? We're still in this honeymoon phase, if you will, before the full effects of the tariff really take hold.
Yeah, we got a long way to go here, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, the effective tariff rate still hasn't caught up with the reality of what's going on. And this is August 1st. We've got more news on the tariff front, right? So we're getting a lot high. Tariff seems like for all this talk of taco, this is the Trump always chickens out on the tariffs. I don't see taco. I see he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, right? I mean, tariffs are up, and they're up a lot. I mean, if you go look at the effective tariff rate, the actual tariff revenue that Americans are paying, businesses and consumers are actually paying. You can see it. The Treasury Department, releases this data on an ongoing basis. The effective tariff rate is 10% plus, up from 2% at the beginning of the year, and we know all the trend lines point to a higher effective tariff rate, and it feels like we're headed to somewhere between 15 and 20%. So we may even only be halfway through the increase in the tariffs. And then, of course, there's a long lag between when the tariffs go up and implemented, and they actually begin to affect economic activity and show up in the inflation data. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It takes a long time for that to play out. So it feels like we're in store for at least the next 6, 9, maybe even 12 months in accelerating inflation. No,
Yeah,
Chris, you
I think
agree?
so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And all the data dump we got this week, Marissa, I don't know, and you've been on vacation. I don't know if you were following this week, but this week was a big week for economic data. Anything else you want to call out? We talked about the jobs numbers. We talked about the PCE. I've got one other one I'm going to call out, but I'll let you go first.
No, I think I did pay attention a bit. Jobless claims didn't, right? Back to your point about layoffs. I mean, it's not as if there's this mass layoff thing happening. That's not why job growth is weakening. It's that businesses are not hiring.
Not hiring. Yeah. Dante,
Which
sorry, go ahead.
which makes sense given the environment, what we're talking about with all the uncertainty around tariffs. And I think a lot of businesses are probably trying not to pass on prices to consumers for as long as they possibly can, right? And that probably means not hiring people to be able to afford to do that.
Yep. Yep. Dante, in the data dump we got this week, anything else that stood out to you?
I mean, I think the consumer confidence data on both, it seemingly had stabilized and even rebounded a little bit, but that seems like it's set to start declining again. I mean, given the jobs numbers we just got and sort of the potential impact of tariffs still to come, it feels like confidence will take a turn for the worse here in the next couple of months.
Yeah. The thing that stood out for me, we got the GDP number, right? And, taking it at face value, this is for Q2, the second quarter of 2025, but taking it at face value, you say, okay, it's not a problem. It was 3%. That's a solid increase. But of course, that comes off after the Q1 decline of minus 0.5, and these swings in the quarterly numbers are related to swings in trade imports related to the tariffs, all the front loading that we got. So if you take an average of the 2 quarters, which I think is the way to get to the underlying trend, we're just GDP growth in the first half of the year was just over 1%. That's over 1%. And that's pretty weak. Potential is, well, I'm not even sure what potential is anymore given labor force, but 1% is pretty weak, and that's now more consistent with the job numbers that we're getting, the kind of the weakening in job numbers. But here's the thing that struck me was consumer spending.
Yeah.
Real consumer spending. In the month of June, we got that data point yesterday. Indicates that consumer spending all in, if I look at all the spending consumers are due on the goods side and on the service side after inflation, so real consumer spending, that has not budged since December of last year. So for the entire expanse of 2025, we've seen no change in real consumer spending, which is, that's not recession, but that's pretty darn close. I mean, consumers drive the train. Okay.
And that's with the pull ahead in spending.
Yeah.
Prior to the tariffs, right? A lot of cars were sold. Right.
And there's a backside to that, which we're going to see.
Exactly.
And it's all in doing a bit of a forecast. Here you're coming into the second half of the year, and now you're seeing the price increases related to the tariffs kick in and undermine real purchasing power, which has to weigh on consumer spending, right? And that you didn't see that in the first half of the year because it's only now that those price increases are starting to translate through. So, okay, it just feels like we're leading up to the what the probability of recession is going to be. I mean, it just feels increasingly dark. Okay.
Any good news, Mark? Any positives?
In the statistics we got this week,
yeah.
No. There's nothing redeeming in the data that we've got. It's doing, it's redeeming in the sense that it's consistent with what economists like us have been saying. Tariffs and restrictive immigration policy mean higher inflation and weaker economic growth, and here we are, higher inflation and weaker economic growth. It's not surprising. I mean, this is to textbook, it's script. And I would just say, buckle up because you're just starting here. We've got a ways to go to digest these. And the tariffs are still rising. They're still going up. They're not going down. They're going up. And the immigration policy isn't easing; it's getting more restrictive. So, these policies that are weighing heavily on the economy I don't see them getting any easier anytime soon. Maybe the administration changes its mind here, but right now it feels like we're just going to double down on these policies, and they're doing what the textbook said they would do: the higher inflation and weaker economic growth, and that is a clear a message that we're getting from the economic data that we got in this past week. There's no refuting it. It's patently obvious at this point. Anyway, I want to come back and talk about how markets are reacting to all this, and thinking about Fed policy, what the Fed should do, what the Fed is going to do in response to all of this. Very confusing. But before that, why don't we do the stats game? Because we got Marissa back, and she's key to this. And I suspect that everyone's feels like everyone's holding out a little bit on their commentary around their jobs numbers because they don't want to give away their statistic. Am I right? Do I have that sense? I'm a little guilty of that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yep.
All right. Let's play the game. So the game is we all put forward a statistic. The rest of us try to figure that out with clues, questions, deductive reasoning. The best stat is one that's not so easy, we get it immediately. One that's not so hard, we never get it. And if it's apropos to the topic at hand, and we've got a lot of things we've been talking about, all the better. And let's begin with you, Marissa. What's your stat?
My stat is 13.4%.
In the jobs numbers?
Yes.
Payroll survey?
No.
Household survey?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an unemployment rate of some variety.
No.
Okay.
Share.
It is a share. Yep.
Okay.
It's a demographic related to some form of demography?
Not really. No.
Not really? Okay.
Oh.
Okay. It related to participation rates?
No.
Ooh. 13.4.
I mean, it's not a participation rate.
Yeah.
No.
Does it have to do with labor force flows?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
A kind of. Yeah, you
okay.
could say that.
Okay.
So you're saying from employed to unemployed, employed out of the labor force.
Yeah, that's what I'm
a bit.
thinking.
Yeah.
Only a bit though. I don't know what that means.
Like it's not
Not one of those.
it's not a direct labor force flow statistic, but it
Okay.
does have to do with movement
right
into and out of the labor force. Yes.
Oh. I give. Would you guys give?
Yes.
I give.
It sounds like a good one. Marissa, we give. What is it?
Okay. It's the share of the unemployed who are new entrants into the labor force.
Oh,
13.4%. And picked it because back to this notion that we're talking about, that it's not as if massive layoffs are happening outside of federal government, right? This is the largest this share has been since like 1985.
Huh.
There is a huge movement of people, new people entering the labor force and looking for work, but they're not finding work. And I think I might have had a similar statistic last month too. So there's a lot of people coming into the labor force for the first time, right? New graduates, and they are not finding jobs. It's a very tough job seeking market.
Just so I understand, I mean, we know hiring rates are down. So what you're saying is not only are hiring rates down, but you have this huge influx of young or people coming into the labor force for the first time looking for work.
Right. Yeah. And we're not seeing growth in the labor force as we talked, right? Because there's a lot of offset to this, but there are a lot of people coming into the labor force looking for work for the first time, and they're facing a very difficult job market.
Do you know, are they young people, or do you have any sense of the age?
I didn't look at the age, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Yeah.
Why is it so high? I mean, why is it unusually high? I mean, it's not like it's not like there's more kids in school graduating than typical, right? Or is there? I don't know.
Even if I look at, I thought maybe it's a seasonal adjustment thing, but even if you
Yeah,
look at the NSA data,
not seasonally
it's
adjusted.
very large
I mean, I think
still.
it's just that
Yeah,
hiring
it's
is
not
just so
unusually
weak, right?
large.
Like the flow coming in is normal, but there's so little
And
hiring that.
they're unemployed, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at
Right.
the people who are unemployed that are coming in.
Oh, so this
So
could be related to the weak hire. This is the weak hiring
Yeah.
because
yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the flow. It's what you're saying is that you're looking at that group of people that
They're
are
coming in
coming
and
to
they're
the,
not
but they're not
finding
getting out.
work.
They're not getting
Right.
out.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Right.
this
Right.
very
Yep.
consistent with the lack of hiring.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I misinterpreted.
Yeah. Sorry. I maybe wasn't clear on that.
That makes
Yep.
sense. That makes sense. Wow. That is interesting. And you
So you're
say this
talking about, a job market that you haven't had this sort of weakness for new job seekers since the
85.
early 80s. Yeah. 40
Wow.
years.
That is interesting. That is
Hmm.
interesting. Very telling. Okay. All right, Dante, you want to go next? That was great statistic, Marissa. Great one.
I can. I'm going to preface it by saying it's impossibly hard, but it's a good hat
Oh,
tip to my former
geez.
colleagues at BLS. So I
Oh,
want to use it.
okay.
So maybe that's a hint. So the stat is 3,100.
Payroll
Okay.
employment in some
It is, yeah, it is
industry,
employment. Yeah, that's
in
not
federal
industry.
government,
Not
no,
industry.
it's not. Okay. Payroll employment, but not in an industry.
3,100.
It's also not directly from today's report, if that helps.
Okay.
Not
No, that
directly.
doesn't help.
That doesn't help at all. That's
I'll give Marissa. I used to work in the state and metro employment group at BLS, so
oh, you're
that's
saying some of states
there
was
you go.
up
I
with
gave you the
3,100 jobs
in June. So yeah,
in
so
June because it's
that data
lagged one
comes
year,
yep,
1 month.
that data comes out like a few weeks later, right? But it was a strong signal that June was going to get revised down a lot, right? There was this huge disconnect between the original June
Ah,
estimate that we got at the national level and what the sum of state
Wow.
was. And the advantage that the
Good.
state data
Dante, can you
has,
stop? Can you stop for
yeah,
just a second? Because
I
we're
can.
talking in code, I think, a little bit. Just to take a step back and just
Sure.
explain to the listener what's going on. What are you saying here?
Sure. So on Jobs Friday, we get
Yeah.
national level employment
Yeah.
data. A
Right.
few weeks later, we get state and metro employment data and unemployment data. So we get all the same information, but for states and metro areas. So you can get a sort of national level comparison by taking all the changes at the state level and summing them up, right? We call it the sum of state estimate. Um, so that data is lagged a little bit, but the benefit that it has is they actually get additional sample data in before they produce that data, right? So it's based on a larger sample than what the national data is based on because it is lagged by a few weeks. So that sum of state data for June, the last estimates that were published was only up 3,100, right, across all states. And the national level number when we first got June was up 174,000, 47,000, 147,000. So there was this, 140,000 gap between those two numbers, which signaled that, you're likely to get a big downward revision to June, which we did. So that, it's not a perfect estimate. The sum of state isn't always, perfectly representative of what the national number is going to do. But in this case, it was sending a pretty strong signal that the labor market was weaker than what the original number suggested.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you look at that sum of states estimate every month?
I don't always. I should more
Mm.
often. And actually, one of my former colleagues that still works there actually texted me this morning, and he's the one that pointed it out to me and said, "Hey,
Ah,
we're doing pretty good work here. You should pay attention." So,
yeah. Could you just every month follow that? Just to see what it's saying.
yeah,
But it has not turned negative. It's still positive.
hasn't turned negative, but yeah, it's obviously getting pretty close here.
3,100 is pretty close to negative, but
Yes.
okay,
it's probably not statistically significant. I mean,
different. Yeah,
there's no way it is, right?
Yeah.
right. But just, I mean, I used to look at those sum of states numbers all the time in my youth, when I was watching that data carefully, and it can diverge meaningfully from the national data.
The irony here is that when I actually worked there was huge divergences at a time when it mattered. Yeah, that was when the Great Recession was happening and the sum of state data was really bad, right? It was saying
Right.
that job growth was still very strong when it wasn't. So the goal is their hope is that they've improved the state data meaningfully over the last 15 years since I worked there, and now it does a better job of signaling.
Got it. Got it. That was good. That's a really good one. All right, Chris, you're up.
All right. 2,522,000.
And the
Payroll
job,
survey?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it an industry level? Oh, it's
2,500,000.
job gains over the past, since the beginning of the year in some industry.
No, that's a lot of
More
jobs.
direct than that. More direct than that.
What was the number again? 2,000,000.
500.
522,000.
Is it an employment in an industry, Chris?
Yes,
Is it temp help?
it is.
Jeez.
Ah,
Very
there you
good.
go.
Cowbell.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah,
Uh,
this hasn't changed all that much throughout
It's
the
been
year.
declining, right?
Well, very gradually.
Yeah, gradually, but it's been headed south for a while, right?
No,
But it's
well,
actually
no?
leveled off more this
It's
year.
kinda
It was
leveled off
declining a
this
lot
year.
over the last
Has
couple of
it?
years.
Has
Yeah.
it leveled off?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's more of a positive sign, if you will. I was trying to look for something positive.
Oh, okay.
So temp help usually is an indicator, right? When we see that pullback, that's one of the indicators that things are moving south. But this is actually holding up reasonably well. So
But do you
It's
think
not,
it's
is
just
it
that it
rising?
declined so
it's
much?
not
with
rising. It's gradually declining, but
Okay.
it's pretty level, I should say.
It declined a lot last year, though.
Yeah.
So
It did.
maybe it already did its thing.
Possibly. Well, I would expect if we're really on the precipice here, you'd see this go down as well. Right?
What do you think,
That-
Dante? Do you agree with that?
Because I think that if I remember, I haven't looked at it, but I think the level today is still, we're well below like the 2019 level of temp help, right? So it's like we've already sort of like readjusted to a much lower level of temp help employment just generally in the labor market. So I mean, yeah, I would expect it to decline if we were headed
Yeah.
into a recession, but I mean, it is still declining and it has declined a lot over the last 4 years in total. So I'm not sure what
Yeah.
the signal is at this point, but
Right. Interesting.
So you think there's an absolute bottom here or threshold where you can't really go below that unless you're
yeah, I guess
really
maybe
in
I just don't
trouble.
expect as big of declines as you might have given
Okay.
how far it's already fallen. So
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, the signal's just not quite as strong as it might otherwise be, right? But that's interesting. Okay, I got mine. I got one.
Yep.
46.8%.
Diffusion
We're-
index.
Yes, indeed. What?
Wow.
How over what period of time?
3 months private.
Oh my gosh! This is your number 2 indicator.
This was number 2. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that's funny.
that's impressive. That's yeah.
I'm surprised you picked the one you picked over the 46.8%.
I thought that was way too easy. It's like,
Oh, really? Would you have gotten that, Dante? The 46.8?
No, because I looked at the current month actually was above 50, I think,
oh,
yeah.
50
for July. So
It
yeah, I
was.
didn't look to see how weak it was the last 2 months, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
46.8 is
that's low.
that's low. That's recession.
Recession. Yeah.
That's recession. I mean, I think kind of a loose threshold is 50 if you go below 50. But it's not perfect. I mean, there's been some false positives, but 46.8. I mean, what we're saying is that if you look at all the BLS industries, how many are there? There's over 350 or something like that. And you look at job growth over the past 3 months, and you determine the percent of those industries where job growth over the past 3 months has been positive. Only 46.8% of those industries are positive. So that means there's more
flat.
industry or flat. More industries are down than flat to up. And that's historically, if you go back, you look at the data, we've got data back into the early 90s or late 80s. When it falls below 50%, that's a strong tell that you got a problem, that recession is, we're in recession, we're headed towards recession.
It's been below 50 for 3 months now. Right?
Yeah. It has been. It's consistent. It's not just a
Not
one-month
just
thing.
right.
There's other false positives. There was one, I think, back in a year or two ago. That was for one quick month or something. So no, I think this is a pretty strong signal. Okay. I know you did your best, Chris, to find a positive, but I didn't feel that positive to me. I'm just saying. Yeah. So how are the markets reacting? I saw a lot of red on my screen. Maybe though, let's begin with the Fed expectations. What are markets now saying about rate cuts this year? Chris, have you been following that?
Yeah, it's as of this morning, it's 80% chance of a
80.
rate cut in September.
Wow.
Yesterday, that was 38%.
Wow.
So just to give
Right.
you a sense
Mm.
of changing
Right.
attitudes here.
Right. I am. What about December? Do you have that one?
Yeah, let me.
Because the Fed meets in September, then October, and then December.
It's about evenly
Generally,
split between 2 and 3 rate cuts by the end of the year.
okay.
Yep.
So that's a big change from yesterday.
Yeah.
Because yesterday we got the inflation numbers, as we talked about, the PCE deflator, and that was very strong. And I think investors said, hey, how can the Fed cut rates when inflation is uncomfortably high and rising? And then you get today's numbers that show the job market could be falling apart, and big swing in expectations around the Fed. Uh, so what do you think, Chris? I mean, given our forecast, our baseline forecast is we get one cut in September and then another quarter point, then one cut in December, quarter point, and then a few rate cuts next year. And we get back to equilibrium, the R star, the federal funds rate at 3%. Yesterday, I was thinking I'd take out the September cut, given the inflation numbers,
Right.
and we start in December, thinking that at that point we'd have enough economic data, job market data to suggest that, well, we should be more focused on the job market than the inflation numbers because they're more likely to be one-off inflation increases related to the tariffs. But I'm not so sure. Maybe we should keep September and December.
Yeah. Today, I think you put it back in. So no change.
No change. No change in the
Yeah.
forecast. Right. But
We need more data. I'm worried about that aspect as well. I think, we've already alluded to some of the data challenges that we're having just collecting data. And I think
right,
the probability of a Fed misstep here is pretty high because of that.
right. What this Fed, the other thing that happened, I guess it was this week, was the Fed meeting, right? And they decided
Yeah.
Yep.
not to change policy, although there were two dissenters, both of whom are on the board of governors. And I think the last time we had more than one dissenter from the board of governors was back in 1993 or something, way back when. So it's
Long time.
very, very
Wow.
unusual. Yeah. Waller and Bowman dissented. So and of course they dissented because they wanted to cut rates. So I guess their hand is now strengthened as a result of this. So you're thinking that, Chris, that we will see a cut in September. You think that's the most
I
likely?
think so.
You do. Okay.
Of course, lot depends on the inflation
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
But the forecast, you would not change the forecast. You would keep
Not
it
at this point. Right.
right. What about you, Marissa?
Yeah, I would keep the forecast as it is. I think now we're leaning on the side of a recession, weaker job market over inflation.
Right.
But
Okay.
we're going to get a couple inflation readings over the next 2 months. So
That's going to
glad
be
I'm not on
really
the board of
hard.
governors of the Fed.
Yeah. That's going to be really hard, right?
I know.
Because the inflation numbers are almost absolutely going to be ugly. I mean, they're going to be big increases in inflation, and cutting rates in the face of that has got to be pretty
Mhm.
hard.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
They knew that, he's been talking about this for months, that they were going to be up against this situation. And this was
Yeah.
going to be a very difficult thing to navigate
Right.
given
Right.
tariffs.
What about you, Dante? Should we change the forecast or keep it alone?
I definitely don't think
Okay.
it should change right now. I mean, I think obviously we'll get another employment report before the next Fed meetings. If you get another report like this, I find it hard to believe they don't cut in September. I guess if you get a big reversal in a positive direction, which feels hard to imagine right now, then that would obviously give them cover to wait. But if average job growth is still below 50K, I don't, the wheels seem like they're falling off at that point, right?
Well, I don't know. Here's the thing. Here's the really difficult. Well, it's all difficult, but the thing that really makes it even more difficult in my own mind is maybe break even job growth is zero. I mean, if the labor force is not growing, and we know it's not growing because we're losing immigrant workers, that means job growth has to be zero. Otherwise, it's inflationary when you're with that full employment. We're full employment, 4.2. So if the break even, when I say break even, that is the amount of job growth we need to maintain a stable rate of unemployment. That could be zero. It could be zero. So
Yeah.
if you start cutting in the context of, say, we're getting 0 to 50K, that may be exacerbating the inflationary pressures, not, the labor market's clearly dysfunctional, but it's at full employment. And if you're trying to, increase labor demand, you're just going to increase inflationary pressures, exacerbate it. So there's those one-off. Everyone thinks these tariff increases are going to be one-off price increases, but maybe not. If this could be a serious error, could be a big mistake. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think the problem, and if break even is close to zero, the problem becomes then almost by definition, you're going to get negative job readings.
Yes.
But what do they mean? If you're trying to average to zero, then a negative reading doesn't mean the same thing as maybe it does historically. So how do you interpret the negative? Yeah.
My point. Exactly. Because Chris, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's on both sides then, right? Because the inflation story as well. If you think it's a one-off, you're going to have periods where this inflation is lingering at a higher level, and then it comes in. So how do you read the data? How do you right? You're at the zero bound in terms of the job growth, and you're going to have some negatives, and you have to see, can you stomach that?
Right.
Then on the other hand, you're going to have inflation that's elevated, and if you really believe it's one-off, still it's going to be elevated, and then it steps down. So it's just ripe for a mistake, right?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. How are you going to get this right? I mean, I don't know.
When I think we talked about this last month. What does it mean? Because normally the problem is, consumer psychology, right? If you see negative job growth, everyone, runs to their bunker, right? But usually that's happening in the context of layoffs that are increasing, the unemployment rate's rising. So if layoffs are stable and the unemployment rate's stable and you get negative job growth, does that still make people react the same way? I don't know. How do you?
In fact, the variable that we should be focused on perhaps isn't job growth. If I'm sitting at the Fed, the variable I should be focused on is layoffs. If there are no layoffs, then maybe I shouldn't be easing policy. Maybe the labor market is, it's weak, no doubt, but it's weak because there's no labor supply. It's not a labor demand issue, it's labor supply. Or it's a labor demand and supply. I don't know.
It's both. Yeah,
it's both. It's both. But if there is no labor force growth and break even is zero, and you start cutting rates, given like you said we're at 75K underlying job growth. Chris and Marissa think it's less than that, say 25 to 50K, and you start cutting, you could actually exacerbate the inflationary pressures, and you take something that would be one-off, the tariff increases, and make it something more persistent. No?
Yeah. That's the dilemma, right?
Wow. That's pretty freaky. It's like Alice in Wonderland, so.
It's the wage growth is also.
It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Right? That's
average
it's almost
4%.
Almost 4% year over year.
I think ECI is lower. I think the employment cost index is lower, like 3.6, 3.7, but it's not decelerating.
Right.
It's consistent with a full employment economy, Yeah. So, anyway, okay. And in the stock market, last I looked, the stock market was down.
It was down 600.
I think the S&P is down like 400 points or something.
Yeah.
I see 600 down on the. What am I looking at?
600 on the Dow and 100 on the S&P.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So now what and I think the bond 10-year yield is down 12 basis points, right?
12 now. Okay.
We're down to 4.25%, 4.24%. So that would indicate that the markets are pricing in a Fed ease, but that's not enough. That this feels like recession, doesn't it?
Damage.
Now, of course, this also reflects the tariff hikes that the president announced last night, right? So there's that too. But this feels like the equity market is saying, hey, bad news is bad news. This isn't the bad news, is the good news that I get the Fed cut because I'm pricing now 2 Fed cuts. But even despite that, I'm selling. So this says I'm worried about the economy. I'm worried about recession. Right? Chris, did I have that
I'm worried
interpretation
about
right?
demand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. Now turn to what do we think about recession, recession probabilities, and what does it mean for our forecast? Now, our baseline forecast has weak economy. It's been, we've been saying this, since the beginning of the year with the change in administration, because we knew we were going to get tariffs, we knew we were going to get immigration restrictions and cuts. So we knew that, but we've not had a recession in the forecast. Now, there's been times in our conversation on the podcast where we've attached probabilities of recession higher at 50%, but the recession probabilities haven't been high enough, the 2/3 threshold that we've talked about in the past, where we felt confident enough to adopt a recession in our baseline forecast. Last time we talked last week, most of us were saying 45% or so probably recession over the next year. Now, here we are today, given the data, and we just ran hot off the presses our machine learning recession probability indicator that Shandor has worked on and is updating regularly. Updated it with today's jobs numbers. We're now at 49% probability of recession. And every time that particular model gets over 50%, we've had a recession. And we've never had a false positive, never has it risen above 50, and we not gotten recession. So we're right on the cusp. That's just pure quantitative. We're nothing subjective about that. That's a model. Okay, so that's the lay of the land. Okay, so Marissa, what do you think? What is the probability of recession at this point in the next 12 months? She's thinking.
I want to say 50%, but I don't want to, that
You don't
seems
want to say
wimpy. So I'll be somewhat optimistic and say 45,
45.
which I think is kind of where I've been.
So none of this data changed your mind.
I don't even know what I think back to the labor market discussion. The labor market is just so driven right now by demographics that I totally agree with you that we could be getting 10,000 jobs a month, and that's not a recession. Because I just think there's it's a supply thing going on. So negative numbers in the job market don't necessarily mean to me that we're in a recession.
That's an interesting point. I mean, you made it crystal clear. Suppose the economy starts losing jobs because the labor force is contracting. Is that not a recession? Why would that not be a recession? A recession is a broad-based, persistent decline in economic activity. If we get consistent job loss, regardless of whether it's demand or supply that's at the heart of it, why wouldn't that be a downturn? The economy is shrinking. That's a recession, isn't it?
What if other indicators are not, though? Which is kind of where we are, right? I mean, GDP is messed up because of the tariffs. So we got a negative print in the first quarter. We got a strong reading in the second quarter. I don't, average those things out. We have a growing economy. We have consumers are kind of bumbling along, still spending.
Okay, so what you're saying
is that doesn't sound like a recession.
I see. So it's not broad-based. You're saying, okay,
right,
we're losing jobs, but still GDP's growth is positive. It can't be, you got to need some pretty significant productivity growth to get some significant increase in productivity, but you're getting some productivity growth. Consumers, they're not packing it in.
They're not pulling back.
They're holding their own.
Right.
They're holding their own. So that's enough to say, okay, that's not a recession.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. I don't see how you can say it's a recession, even if you have no job growth. If you have positive GDP readings and you have positive consumer spending, that doesn't sound like a recession to me.
I suspect though that you can't be in a world of negative jobs for any length of time and not start getting GDP
Yeah,
headed negative too.
eventually,
I
right?
think
Because
that's
then
pretty
then
tough.
it's all coming from productivity growth, right?
Yeah, I
If
don't.
you have no labor supply, then it's all got to come out of productivity, and I don't know that we're in a world where productivity growth is that high right now.
Yeah. Okay, Dante, what's your probability of recession?
My conviction is declining by the minute as I look at this conversation. I was going to go above 50, and now framing the labor market as, well, maybe break even is zero is like, well, okay, maybe then, so this isn't so bad, and sort of
Yeah.
the
Well, it's
government drag
bad.
here.
It's got to be. It's bad.
It's bad, but it's not as bad if you frame
Yeah.
it that way. It
Yeah.
makes it seem slightly more positive, right? That
Right.
maybe
Right.
that's just what's feasible, and you've got this sort of temporary government drag that will go away eventually. We might get
Right.
bigger before it gets smaller, but so I'm going to go right at 50. I was going to go above. I'm going to go right at 50.
At 50.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to be the wimp.
So I feel less good than I did a
You're
month ago.
wimpy. You're
But
being wimpy.
yeah,
Wimpy.
Marissa called me out right away. Anybody that goes 50 is a wimp, and I'm here. Sign me up.
Right. I know. I know. Chris, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the model, 49%.
Yeah, 49%. That's slightly less wimpy, I guess.
Yeah. It's honest. It's honest.
Okay. All right. All right. In your heart of hearts, just let loose a little bit, in your heart of hearts. Do you think should we change our baseline forecast, Chris?
I think we should weaken the growth.
Weaken the growth, which is already pretty damn weak.
Yeah, but not tip into recession.
But not tip in recession. Dante?
Consistent with the story we're telling here.
Yeah, consistent with the story we're telling. Dante,
yeah, I wouldn't change the forecast. It just feels like the tightrope that we're sort of narrating here is getting more precarious, right? The idea that you can sort of walk this tightrope of no job growth, it just feels like it's not going to take much to tip at that point, right?
That sounds like the fodder for the title for this podcast. You got to have tightrope in it, because
yeah.
You're right. We're on a tightrope, and it feels like the tightrope is getting thinner and thinner. It's like
and we're losing our balance. Yeah,
we're losing our balance. We're losing our balance. Okay.
Our forecast does not have much job growth, and it has positive GDP.
We've been very consistent with that. And I've been getting a lot of flack, by the way, from clients. A lot of flack. Hey, clients, I'm just saying.
And Dante.
I'm just saying. Let me say that again. I'm just saying. Okay, go ahead, Marissa.
That's right. I mean, we have gotten a lot of pushback from some clients who said, how can you possibly be forecasting almost no job growth?
Yeah.
Right.
Here we are.
And this is where we are.
Here we are.
Because it's demographic, it's a labor supply story. So that is our forecast, and it's panning out.
Well, I don't want to oversell the labor supply. That's definitely, but the labor demand is weak. Going back to your hiring, that's labor demand. Hours worked.
Yes. Right.
Labor demand is weak. It's just not falling apart because you don't have any layoffs.
Right. So people aren't businesses are not hiring. And we have a lot of people not in the labor force anymore that were powering a lot of the labor force growth a year ago, 2 years ago.
Right. Well, I'm with Chris. I'm going to use the model. I think, I know. The model, I said 3-month moving average of the model because it does. There's some volatility. So I'd say 45 I was at 40 to 45. Now I'm 45 to 50. But I have to tell you, in my heart of hearts, I think we're going into recession. I think there's a really strong probability we're going into. Maybe it's my emotions taking in the data that I've just observed. So I have to digest it. But at this point, at 11:37 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, August 1st, 2025, I'll have to tell you, it does not feel good. It does not feel good because the things that are driving the economy into the ditch are still in play. They're not unwinding. They're re-intensifying.
Yeah.
Here we are. The tariffs are not declining. They're going up. They're high and going up. We know they're going up. And the immigration policy, I don't see any reversal in there. That's harder to track. We don't really have a clear sense of how that's playing out, but you can feel it in the labor market data. So I don't know. It just, and we know the cause of the weakness are tariffs and immigration policy, and of course, to some degree, the cutting in government jobs. But that's secondary. But those things are in full swing. So if you believe those things are behind what's going on, how can you? It just feels like, how are we going to get through this without? And of course, the Fed is going back to the Fed. What does the Fed do with this thing? I mean, how do they manage this? It's so hard to manage, even if they start cutting rates, at this point. I mean, because that's already embedded in a lot of rate cutting is already embedded in long-term interest rates and the stock market and everything else. So I don't know. I guess there's two tells here in my mind. When I say tell, things that will tip us to actually incorporate a recession in our baseline forecast. First is layoffs. If we get any pickup of layoffs here, if UI claims, initial claims start headed, right now they're at 220, 225 per week. If we're at 250 headed north, that would be a tell. That's that's the firewall between no recession and recession right now. That means that businesses are deciding to pack it in. The other is the stock market. If the stock market goes south, I think that really will be very, very, this go around, very difficult for high-end, high net worth consumers to ignore. And if they start to pull back, because they're the bulk of that's where all the spending goes, then, very difficult to see spending not start to going negative. And once spending goes negative, then you get the layoffs and everything else. So I think if I had to pick two things I would focus on, it would be those things, the UI claims and the S&P 500. Does that make sense to what I just said? Dante, does that
Yep.
make sense?
Yeah.
Would you throw any other indicator in there? Other than our recession model?
No, I think layoffs to me is the single most
Layoffs,
important. I mean,
yeah.
that's, yeah.
Okay. Marissa, anything else you'd add?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope.
Chris?
Yield curve just inverted, but
Oh, is that
just
right?
just throw that out there.
Add a little fuel to the fire.
Yeah,
It just
how do you
inverted like a minute ago.
like this morning. Yeah.
How do you measure it? 3-month versus 10-year?
Yeah.
3-month versus 10-year? Okay.
Yeah, with that drop in the 10-year.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, we've had a whole session about, you don't want to look at just 1 day, 1 minute, but still it's
Right.
with some
Right.
perhaps.
Okay. All right. And just to remind the listener, because when I said we in our forecasting, we put pen to paper. I mean, we run every month our models, produce data, forecasts that we put into databases that clients use. So, we're doing this every month, and our kind of operating method is that for us to make a big change in underlying assumptions or the forecast, and adopting recession obviously would be a big change, we have to be very confident, and confidence is defined by a subjective probability of over 2/3. So, we're all sitting around 50%, give or take. That's not confident enough to change the baseline. So we need to see more before we actually adopt a recession forecast. But obviously recession risks are very high. Okay. All right. We covered a lot of ground. Anything else, guys, that you want to talk about before we call it a podcast? Dante, anything?
No.
Okay. I know you want to get back to your golf game. Yeah.
Right.
And Marissa, I know she's still on vacation and wants to get back to that. And Chris is working hard.
Got some work to do.
Chris
But
has
he's
some
got to
work
be
do.
working.
Yeah. And anything, guys, before we call it? No?
No?
Gone. Okay.
Razor's Edge.
Razor's Edge. That's another good potential title. Okay. With that, we're going to call this a podcast, dear listener. Hope you thought it was useful and informative, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care now.